Well, howdy. Udo. Howdy Udo. How do you do, that is. I hope you're well, but honestly, even if you're not, it doesn't really matter because today at the Creamery we've got a guaranteed mood improver. And while mood improvement is the standard function of the Creamery and its frozen products, today's batch is especially cheering because we're taking a sweet field trip to the happiest little agricultural corner on Earth with Jolly Rancher ice cream. Whoa, but Dr. B, what qualifies you to lead this field trip? Well, I'm glad you asked. Now, I don't really advertise it much, but I am about as close to being a genuine ranch hand that you can get. So buckle on your biggest 10-gallon hat and let's get cooking. Now, before we get too far, I guess I should probably tell you what's behind this Jolly Rancher ice cream, and I really think you'll see where I'm coming from if you've ever heard people talk about cooking rice. I mean, most people will probably just cook it in water, but then you'll hear cooks say things like, why cook it in flavorless water if you could use a flavorful liquid like stock? Take every chance you get to infuse some flavor into your food, they say. And, well, sugar is sweet, but it also tends not to be much else. So I was thinking, why use plain sugar when you could use flavored sugar? And what is hard candy but flavored sugar, and what is the most distinctive and jovial of hard candies? Why, it's the Watermelon Jolly Rancher. So I went out into the field and plucked myself a bushel of candies. Now, here's the catch. I tried this once a while back, and I just substituted the candies for sugar 1-to-1, but if you look at those nutrition facts that grow on the back of the leaves, you'll notice that a serving size is 3 candies or 18 grams, and that each serving has 11 grams of sugar, which means we're going to have to do some lickety-split cross-multiplication. If we have 11 grams of sugar out of 18 grams of candy, and we want 200 grams of sugar in our ice cream, how much candy will we need? No, really. Somebody please tell me so that we can get on with the show. Now, I'll give you a minute to figure it out, and then be sure to put it in the comments last week so that I can see it in time to make this recipe this week. Nah, I'm just pulling your leg. That was hogwash. Really, it comes out to about 327 grams of candy. So really, you'd best grab your candies and get to peeling. Once you do, it's into the blender, or millstone, or whatever you plan to use to pulverize your field fresh candies into a sugary dust with. If you go the blender route, be careful when you take that lid off. You are about to get a nose full of aerosolized watermelon essence. And that's not to say that that's really a problem, it's just a little olfactory preview of where we're headed. Now, really, the idea here is that you could do this with any ice cream recipe you want. We're just swapping out the sugar with an appropriately ratioed mass of flavored sugar. So the chemistry should all work out just fine. But for our purposes, I'm going back to Dana Cree's blank slate recipe because, well, I'm familiar with it and I know how it works. And since we're already enjoying the fresh air and wide open spaces of Dr. B's dairy farm, and also getting along with all of the little dogies, it'll be really easy to get everything we need right here. So in addition to our 327 grams of farm-to-table watermelon candies, we'll also need to head off to the grocery store and find ourselves 380 grams of cream and 400 grams of whole milk, all of which, of course, has been pasteurized, homogenized, and packagized. Oh, and while you're out, don't forget to pick some fresh milk powder and xanthan gum. We'll need 20 grams and 1 gram of those, respectively. Now, off-screen, mix your milk powder and candy dust and set that aside. Then, heat up your dairy liquids until they're boiling. Once you hit a boil, stir in your milk powder candy dust mixture and turn the heat down to simmer the whole thing for 2 minutes. When you've got that cooked and everything is dissolved and unified, take it off the heat and get it cooling down. Once it's cool, it's back into the blender with your dairy mix and your gram of xanthan gum. Now, I left my blender all crusted up with leftover candy dust because it's all going to dissolve back in at this point, so feel free to leave yours crusty too. Then let it all run for a while to incorporate, and it's off to the fridge to cure until tomorrow. And while it's curing, you might be wondering what we're supposed to do about the fact that our base recipe calls for a particular ratio of granulated sugar and glucose, and maybe whether or not that ratio is reflected in the composition of a Jolly Rancher. And I think that's a lovely question, and my answer is that I don't know, and I don't really care. In the end, we're after a certain mass of sugar. Now, if you really want to pop the hood on your hard candy and try to figure out the corn syrup sugar percentages and what that means for your ice cream, go ahead. But also, I will just say, if you're making candy ice cream, maybe we don't need to overthink the sugar. Anyway, let's churn this kid and then package it up and let it harden in the freezer. And look at where that's led us. Beautiful, isn't it? But of course, we're not just here to look at crystal encrusted ice cream. Ice cream isn't a decoration, so let's see how it tastes. Now, you know, there are days in the life of a self-certified cowpoke creamerist where it's hard to decide if I feel more like a genius or a magician. And honestly, the answer is probably neither, but it sometimes feels like both. I mean, come on, this tastes exactly how you think it would, which maybe isn't surprising, but it's also completely surprising. And it's not surprising that Jolly Ranchers taste like Jolly Ranchers, but it is surprising that ice cream tastes exactly like them. I mean, it's both completely predictable based on what we've done and unlike any other ice cream experience I've ever had. Like, yeah, Jolly Ranchers taste like this, but ice cream doesn't. And to pull off this little bit of kitchen sorcery with a simple ingredient swap feels nothing short of astonishing. Of course, this also means that you could probably get away with swapping in any kind of flavored sugar that you're in the mood for. The hard candy sky is the limit. What a world of possibilities is before you. Well, except blue raspberry. I get that it's popular, but what is it? I'm just not sure that we should be trusting it. Now, my only real complaint is that there is just a little bit of a going on texturally here. My uneducated guess is that it might have something to do with the way the malic acid in the candy is playing with the dairy. It's not really a significant issue, but it is theirs. And really, it's nothing a little more aggressive straining couldn't fix if it really does bother you. But either way, if you're feeling like you could use a little extra magic in your life, play the magician and rustle up some hard candies to make your very own Jolly Rancher ice cream. Now, you might have thought that Jolly Ranching was as impossible as Happy Camping, but at least until they make a delicious candy called Happy Campers, you can at least bask in the real joy that Jolly Rancher ice cream provides. I'm just eating ice cream now. Now I'm just eating ice cream. So get yourself a scoop and make yourself at home on the range until the cows come home, or whatever it is they say. Well, actually, listen, I gotta be honest. It might come as a shock to you, but the closest I've really come to farming is being the grandson of a man who grew up as a sugar beet farmer. So even though I do make for a pretty convincing cowpoke, I figured you'd have the right to know the real me. Anyway, I do hope my little deceit today hasn't driven a wedge between us, and I hope to see you again in the next one. Now go on, no. Sorry, old habits. I should say, thank you so much for being here, and I wish you the very best until we meet again.